What's up guys, it is As Josh Sees It, and as you can see right in front of me, it is the brand new Harley-Davidson 2020 Softail Low Rider S. Look at this thing. I'm so excited to show you guys everything about this bike, and today is the day where we get to test ride it right after this. Alright guys, well today's the day we get to test ride the new Low Rider S. Here she is in all of her glory. We got Travis over here on his 2019 Low Rider. He's going to ride with us so we can do a little bit of a comparison. Want to just say shout out to Texas Harley-Davidson for allowing us to take out this bike, doing a full review of it. If you guys are in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, be sure to go check them out. Well, what do we have here? Super excited about this bike.
One of the first things that I notice about this bike is just how comfortable this bike is, the riding position that you're in. I really think Harley-Davidson did a great job in implementing raised controls on this bike. So Harley-Davidson actually installed a 4-inch riser on this bike that really puts you in a really aggressive riding position. The bike also comes with these motocross bars on it that are extremely nice. Now, I didn't know how I was going to feel about this right off the bat. This was Harley-Davidson's way and really trying to appease a lot of the people that have been doing T-bars on their bikes lately. And you know, I was a little bit apprehensive. I just wasn't sure at what it was going to do. And I'll say right off the bat, they did a really good job. You know, for me, I'm 5'10", and these bars are a little bit below my shoulder length, which is how I like them, especially for long rides. And right off the bat, you know, I'm in a really good position, but I'm also in a really aggressive position. And this bike just sets you up to be able to take corners quickly, have a lot of control over the bike. You know, I can throw this bike around easily right off the bat. And, you know, I'll just have to say super huge shout out to Harley for listening to their customers and installing this. I could definitely see some of my friends and the people I ride with going with maybe 6 or 8-inch risers on this bike just to make it a little bit taller and get it kind of consistent with shoulder height. But again, one of the things that I mentioned in the last video that I was talking about that Matt Laidlaw had also mentioned was that Harley-Davidson is trying to navigate the laws of 50 different states and all of the shoulder height compliance and everything that's going on. So, you know, I think Harley was probably safe in implementing these 4-inch risers, and it's definitely a move in the right direction for Harley-Davidson. And you know, one of the things that I noticed right off the bat about this bike is just how comfortable the seat is also. It's a solo seat, and I wasn't sure, you know, if Harley-Davidson was going to really build this bike to be sportier and not necessarily build it as comfortable as possible. But I'll say, after sitting on this bike and riding around with it for just a couple minutes, I'm really impressed at how comfortable the seat is and how much back support you have just from this little lip that's on the seat. I think the comfort that I'm feeling also, in addition to the aggressive riding position that I'm in, is just coupled with the suspension of having the monoshock, having the soft tail frame, but also having the inverted front forks. The inverted front forks are something I'm going to get to a little bit later in the video. I want to see how inverted forks are going to hold up going at higher rates of speed and everything. Obviously, these forks are brand new. When we got on the bike had 10 miles on it, so the forks are only going to get better as they're a little more broken in. But right off the bat, man, this bike is just really awesome. It's in a really good, comfortable riding position. Just really curious to see what this bike can do. You know, so let's talk a little bit about aesthetics, because one of the things that I really like about this bike is Harley-Davidson went the direction of making everything blacked out. So they had implemented this style in some of their touring bikes, specifically the Road Glide Special, the Street Glide Special, and the Road King Special in the last few years. I actually have the Road Glide Special, and so everything on my bike is blacked out, and that's obviously becoming a style that's more and more popular. So really excited to see that Harley-Davidson went the extra mile, and with the S model they gave you that blacked out finish. So what this bike is going to come with, it's going to come with kind of a raw dark look is what Harley-Davidson describes it as. So your exhaust is going to be blacked out, your risers are blacked out, the mini speed screen is blacked out on here, your mirrors are blacked out. This bike doesn't have hardly any chrome on it, which is really cool. It gives it a really aggressive kind of feel, and definitely is a bike that is personalized right off the bat. You know, some of the things that I notice right off the bat also are, obviously this has the 114 engine in it. The bike has the inverted front forks. It has a custom painted Harley-Davidson emblem on the tank instead of a traditional tank badge on there, so that's definitely an interesting thing that Harley-Davidson did. And then it has dual disc front brakes, which I was really happy to see that Harley-Davidson not only upgraded the engine on this bike and went from the 107 to the 114, but also coupled it with better stopping power and then better suspension in the inverted front forks. This bike is still going to have the monoshock rear suspension on it that's consistent with the Low Rider in the 2019 and then in the 2020 models, so you're going to get that same back suspension. But from what I've ridden on the other Softails, I really enjoy the monoshock rear suspension, and I'm always surprised at how much better it is than, say, a traditional Sportster suspension. It's still not going to be at the level you're going to get with a lot of the Harley-Davidson touring lineup suspension, but it's pretty darn close. You know, one of the things that I noticed right off the bat when walking up to this bike was the cast aluminum wheels that they came with. Harley-Davidson describes them as a radiate cast aluminum wheel, and they're finished in a matte dark bronze, and I wasn't sure how much I was going to like it. To be honest, I was kind of hoping for either a black chrome or maybe a matte black to be kind of consistent with the rest of the finishes, but I really, after looking at it, the matte dark bronze just really makes this bike pop, and there's a lot of contrast between the forks and the rims, and I honestly am a fan of it after looking at it, and especially after riding this bike around and having other people look at the bike while I'm on it. Okay, so one of the things that I'm most interested in is just how this 114 Milwaukee 8 engine feels on a Softail bike. This bike comes in at a weight of, I think, about 650 pounds, so it's going to be significantly lighter than, say, my ROADGLIDE Special that has the 114 in it. I believe it's still going to be a little bit more heavy than the Fat Bob 114, but I'm really curious to see what this bike feels like through the turns, how it accelerates, and then how it brakes with the dual disc front brakes on it. So yeah, after getting on this bike for a little bit, I can definitely say that this bike is tremendous. I mean, the acceleration on it just blew me away. It was definitely a lot faster than I thought it was going to be. So for a little bit of comparison, I've ridden a Softail Low Rider that was a stage 1. So stage 1, what I mean by that is it had the intake, it had a full exhaust system, and it was tuned. And I can say that this bike, the Low Rider S, stock with the 114 engine, is much faster than a stage 1 107 Low Rider. This bike, you can just definitely feel the extra power, the extra torque. And what I probably like most about this bike is that as you're accelerating, you just have that ease of mind to know that this bike can stop on a dime with the dual disc front brakes. It's definitely something that I tried and just wanted to make sure, because the last thing you want is to have all this power on this bike and not be able to stop it in case, you know, whatever the case may be, a car pulls out in front of you, or, you know, you just accelerated too much and just kind of got happy and got on the throttle. Whatever the case is, it's just nice to know that you have those dual disc front brakes on there. After riding this bike around a little bit, one of the main things that I personally noticed that was really a shock to me is just how smooth the suspension feels on this bike. And I think a lot of that is directly due to the inverted front forks and what Harley-Davidson did with this front end suspension. You know, it wasn't something that I really had anticipated being that big of a deal, but after riding this bike, I would say that it's the thing that is sticking out the most to me. It improves the responsiveness to steering input, and just with a single cartridge internal technology, it responds quick to bumps in the road, and it just really helps to just provide a really smooth ride. And honestly, right off the bat, I would have to say that I enjoy the suspension more for short-term rides than I even do on my ROADGLIDE. You know, I could definitely see this bike being a really, really good bike that you could just take right off the factory room floor and go on a really long distance ride. You could definitely put 500, 600, 700 miles down on this bike and not feel it as much as, say, you would on a Sportster or a Dyna or even some of the other Softail bikes. So next, Travis and I are actually going to trade bikes. Travis is on a 2019 Low Rider. He has a stage 1 kit done to his, so he has intake, exhaust, he has it tuned, he has some taller bars on there, and I think he has a Saddleman step-up seat on there. And the reason we wanted to trade was just to do two things. To be able to give you a comparison of the two bikes versus each other, and also just to give you some road shots and show you what this bike looks like when somebody's riding it, so you can kind of picture yourself riding down the road on this bike.
Dude, really nice. I mean, it goes. To have that 114 in it, with just being as light as this thing weighs, this thing's gnarly. All right, let's do it. Well guys, it looks like at that last straightaway, Low Rider S accelerated so much, it actually knocked my microphone out of the GoPro housing, which kind of bummed me out at first, but that's stinking cool. Travis and I just switched up bikes. The reason we did so was I can show you guys some kind of road shots of this 2020 Low Rider S. Look at this thing, man. This thing is super clean. And I'll say, the bike that I'm on right now is a 2019 Low Rider, so not the S model. And Travis's bike is a full stage 1, so it has the intake, exhaust, and it's tuned. And I think the Low Rider S over there has a lot more torque than this bike. So this bike has a 107 in it, full stage 1, and the Low Rider S up there, I think is faster, man. Faster as a stock bike. That's really, really impressive to me. After riding both of these bikes, there's definitely an improvement in the suspension that you can feel on the new Low Rider S versus the regular Low Rider. I mean, right off the bat, I can feel a lot of the bumps and everything we're going over right now with just the regular forks. Again, these are not the inverted forks that the Low Rider S comes with, and you can really, really tell the difference. And I'll just go back to what I was saying earlier. That Low Rider S suspension feels as smooth or as close to as smooth as the Harley-Davidson Touring lineup, but still has that aggressive feel to where you can hug corners, you can do what you need to do. Definitely really, really impressed. You know, there were two bikes that Harley-Davidson came out with this year that I knew I was going to be impressed with. It was going to be the CVO Street Glide that I did a review of a couple weeks ago, and it was going to be this bike, and this bike did not disappoint. So yeah, after gunning it on this bike and gunning it on that bike's faster. It is, man. There's no doubt in my mind that that bike, the new 2020 Low Rider S, is way quicker than even a Stage 1 2019 Low Rider. One of the things that Travis and I were just discussing is how smooth the bike feels. You know, I think that's one of the things that I'm most shocked about the new Low Rider S, is just how smooth the bike feels and how much of a difference those inverted forks really make on the bike. I think that bike is going to shine, especially when you're doing long distance rides. If you're going 500, 600, 700 miles, that you're going to be able to do that with ease on this new bike. Also really happy to see Harley-Davidson just really listening to their customer base and doing some things on these bikes that people are going to want. At least the past few years, the T-bars have really been a more popular setup on bikes, and as you can see, even on Travis's bike in front of me, he has a full T-bar setup, and a lot of bikes were going that way, and really cool of Harley-Davidson to just acknowledge that and do that on this bike kind of stock. So kind of wrapping up, the question is, would I buy the Low Rider S? I think so, man. This bike is really nice. I wouldn't trade in my touring bike because one of the things that I like to do is go long distances. We just got back from a 10-day, 3,200 mile trip, and I wouldn't trade in my bike for the Low Rider S to do rides like that. But man, with how nice the Low Rider S is, I'd really take it for a second bike. And I'll say, for anybody that's currently riding on, say, a Sportster or a Dyna or anything like that, or even a current bike on a Softail frame, if it were me, I would 100% upgrade to that bike. That bike is far superior in power, in handling, in suspension, in comfort. We're on motorcycles, super fortunate to be able to do what we do every single day. I want to thank you guys, the viewers, for making everything we're doing possible and enjoyable, you know. I love being able to test ride bikes for you guys. I love being able to talk about the pros and the cons of bikes, kind of giving you guys hopefully a little bit of a different perspective, a behind the scenes look at bikes. hopefully everything I'm doing encourages you guys to get out there and ride more, encourages you guys to get out and test ride some bikes, get outside of your comfort zone. And at the end of the day, hopefully these videos I'm making just encourage you to get out there and ride more, regardless of if you're on a BMW or a Harley-Davidson or a Kawasaki or a Honda or a Triumph, whatever kind of bike you're on. I just hope that you get out there and ride more. Just super grateful for the opportunity to be able to ride this bike. There she goes. There's that 114 engine. Say bye, everybody. So yeah, super huge shout out to Texas Harley-Davidson for making this video possible and letting us take out the brand new 2020 Softail Low Rider S. So this has been another moto vlog coming at you from As Josh Sees It. If you'd like what you see, go ahead and hit the subscribe button, drop a comment below, let me know your thoughts on this bike, things that you like, things that you don't like, things that you would have wished Harley-Davidson would have done, or even potential upgrades that you guys think you would like to see on these bikes. Hope you guys have enjoyed this video. Peace.